I just saw Jimmy Hart yesterday. He was fine, laughing, full of life, and now Hulk Hogan is gone, and the whole wrestling world is reeling. Nobody expected him to go out like this. But here's the kicker. Fresh details from his autopsy are pointing the blame at one man, Vince McMahon, and let me be blunt, Hulkamania? I never bought into the hero worship. The only time I enjoyed it was when Undertaker dragged Hogan behind his own motorcycle like a giant sack of roadkill. But the truth is uglier than any wrestling storyline. Something that happened decades ago, while Hogan and McMahon were joined at the hip, may have played a direct role in his death. July 24, 2025, Hulk Hogan, born Terry Jean Ballia, dies of cardiac arrest at 71. But this wasn't just the result of years in the ring. This was the inevitable end of a career spent inside a machine designed to break bodies and cash the checks. And that machine had a name, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, their relationship. A toxic cocktail of money, power, and control. You can see it. In one chilling moment from their past, when McMahon looked Hogan dead in the eye and said, "Hulkamania is diseased. Hulkamania has a terminal illness. Hulkamania has cancer. Meant for TV?" Sure, but the words turned out to be prophetic. In the worst way possible. Because the cancer was real decades of physical and mental destruction, built into the system McMahon created. To see where it started, go back to the 1980s. McMahon was turning his father's small wrestling promotion into a global powerhouse. This was the height of Hulkamania and the steroid era. McMahon wanted his wrestlers to look like comic book superheroes. Impossible bodies, bulging muscles. And to achieve that, steroids became the industry's dirty little secret. The pressure was relentless. You wanted to make it in Vince's WWF? You'd better look the part, no matter what it did to your health. And Hogan? He was the poster boy. 14 years of steroid use, admitted in court under immunity. Not because he wanted to, because it was survival. And where did the drugs often come from? Dr. George Zahorian, the WWF's own ringside doctor, later convicted of illegally distributing steroids, the abuse didn't stop there. Wrestlers were worked to the bone, over 200 shows a year, no off-season. Injuries were part of the storyline. Pain became profit. Even the wrestling rings were unforgiving, hardboards, no give. Every time Hogan hit that famous leg drop, he was wrecking his spine while McMahon raked in the money years later. Studies proved it. Wrestlers from the mid-80s to 2011 died at nearly 3 times the rate of other men their age. The leading killers? Heart disease and drug abuse, exactly what McMahon's empire thrived on. By the end, the immortal Hulk Hogan wasn't immortal at all. He was broken. Surgeries, addiction, chronic pain. And when his heart stopped, in 2025, it wasn't just age catching up. Vince McMahon had been breaking it for decades. By the time Hogan was limping through his later years, the damage from McMahon's system was impossible to hide. 10 back surgeries, multiple hip and knee replacements, shoulder operations, neck fusion, eye surgeries, abdominal repairs. 25 surgeries in the last decade of his life. That's not bad luck. That's systematic destruction. Every injury could be traced back to the choices Vince McMahon made. The grueling schedules, the unsafe rings, the dangerous stunts. Designed for spectacle, not safety. Even Hogan's signature move, that leg drop fans loved so much, was crushing his spine one performance at a time. McMahon knew it. He just saw it as good business. Hogan's physical pain bled into something darker, addiction. In a 2023 interview, he admitted there was a period just a few years earlier when he was in crazy pain, swallowing prescription painkillers like candy. And when the pain eased, he kept taking them anyway. That's what happens when the system pushes you past your limits, then feeds you pills to keep you going. The real kicker. Long-term steroid use, like the 14 years Hogan spent juicing in McMahon's WWF, is proven to wreck the heart. It can enlarge the heart muscle, raise blood pressure, warp cholesterol levels, and trigger arrhythmias. These aren't random risks, they're well-documented medical facts. And Vince McMahon had access to the same research as any doctor. He just ignored it. McMahon didn't have to tell anyone to take steroids. He built a locker room where the only way to succeed was to look like a Greek god. You walk in as a young wrestler, ready to make it big, and you see the truth. The top guys all have physiques you can't get without a needle. You either follow the unspoken rule or you get left behind. It wasn't just steroids McMahon kept. His performers classified as independent contractors, which meant no health insurance, no workers' comp, no long-term protection. He got all the benefits of a full-time roster without taking any responsibility when their bodies broke down. And Hogan wasn't the only casualty. The pattern was everywhere. Owen Hart, dead at 34 after a stunt gone wrong, the show ending in a murder-suicide. Darren Drozdov, paralyzed in the ring, living 24 years as a quadriplegic before passing away. These weren't freak accidents. They were the predictable outcome of a system that valued profit over human life. And Hogan, the man who made McMahon more money than anyone, was one of its biggest victims. By the late 2010s, Hogan was already a shadow of the man fans remembered. Walking with canes, fighting through chronic pain. A body rebuilt by surgeries. A heart weakened by chemicals and a mind carrying decades of trauma. On July 24, 2025, that heart finally gave out, but the real cause of death was decades in McMahon's empire. Hulk. Hogan's death wasn't an isolated tragedy, it was just the latest chapter in Vince McMahon's 4-decade war on the human body. The cardiac arrest that claimed wrestling's biggest star was the same slow death that's been stalking McMahon's performers since the 1980s. Look at the body count. Owen Hart, 78 feet from the rafters, smashed into the ring when a stunt rig failed. That wasn't a freak accident. That was negligence dressed up as entertainment. McMahon didn't stop the show. The cameras kept rolling, the money kept flowing, and Owen's family was left with nothing but grief. Eddie Guerrero, dead at 38 from heart failure. Years of steroid use and brutal matches left his heart swollen and ready to burst. Autopsy. Reports didn't hide it. The damage was written right into the muscle of his heart. McMahon had created the culture that demanded that body, that schedule, that destruction. Chris Benoit, a world-class athlete reduced to a shell by chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Multiple concussions, headbutts from the top rope, chair shots to the skull, all encouraged, all cheered, all rewarded. His brain was so damaged by the end that doctors said it looked like that of an 85-year-old dementia patient. And McMahon knew the risks long before Benoit's final breakdown. The research was out there. He didn't care. Darren Drozdov, paralyzed in McMahon's ring in 1999, one botched powerbomb, and he never walked again. 24 years in a wheelchair, living with the consequences of one night's entertainment for Vince's crowd. This is the pattern. Lives shortened, minds destroyed, bodies crippled. And through it all, McMahon stayed untouchable, insulated by contracts, lawyers, and the fiction that wrestlers are independent contractors. No responsibility, no accountability, just profit. Hogan's case is the most visible because he was McMahon's greatest creation, the man who put WWE on the global map. But that also made him McMahon's greatest asset to exploit. Every slam, every match, every appearance was another deposit in McMahon's bank account, and another withdrawal from Hogan's life expectancy, even when the signs were clear. The surgeries, the pain, the addiction, McMahon kept the machine running, kept promoting the myth of the immortal Hulk Hogan, even as the real man behind the character was falling apart. The Golden Hero was just a product to be marketed until it broke, and when it finally did, on July 24, 2025, McMahon wasn't at the funeral crying over his friend. He was sitting on his fortune, built on the backs and broken spines of men like Hogan. The truth is simple. Vince McMahon didn't just outlive Hulk Hogan, he helped kill him, slowly, systematically. And if history tells us anything, it's that Hogan won't be the last. Because as long as McMahon's machine keeps running, there will always be another body to break, another heart to stop, another grave to fill.